We talk some Auburn football recruiting on the special edition of the Uptempo podcast.
You are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
Let's go. What is up, Auburn family? I hope everybody's week is good. That New Mexico State game is right around the corner, Blake. Hope you're doing all right, buddy. We got to talk some recruiting, man, a topic you know that I love to talk about, brother. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Dustin. I'm glad to be here, man. And New Mexico State this Saturday, the Iron Bowl next Saturday. Exciting times on the plains, like always, man. Recruiting's popping. And one thing I always like to look back to is a year ago, man, just how far away we were from where we are now, man. And it just feels really, really nice. And to have the pipelines in Florida and Georgia and you know, dipping over into Mississippi and the states just surrounding the great state of Alabama, because we know what kind of talent we have here, Dustin. And you're really starting to get all that back, man, and that feeling of Auburn getting back to what it used to be. You know, we talk all the time about back when we were growing up, you know, and just the defenses that we used to have back in the day. And you're starting to see those things happen at Auburn right now. So a lot of positivity going on, man. I feel like the fan base is even starting to grow a lot of buzz, man. People are getting excited, Dustin. So I'm glad to be here, brother.
You make a good point about going back a year ago, and I've messed up a couple of times recording this week. I keep calling New Mexico State Western Kentucky because it's a year ago, right? And I just I went to that game. I'm going this week, and just the feeling going to that game and not knowing. I was happy to be seeing Cadillac, but not knowing what the future was going to be. And now a year later, going up there this week and knowing what the future is going to be, all of a sudden worry about a trap game. You got to be doing good, right? If you're worried about looking ahead. So it's good, like you said, man. It's a world of difference this year has made, and all that starts recruiting. And we knew when Hugh Freeze got in here and flipped these guys like Connor Lew, Kay and Lee, Keldrick Falk, these guys that we see getting reps. We knew that Hugh Freeze was about it. And after the big 48-10 this weekend in Arkansas, shortly after, we pull a big time. I think he's a 5-star. We're gonna bring in our guy here, Dukes, 24/7. Dukes, what is the scoop, buddy? How you doing tonight, man?
Man, I'm good, man. How you guys doing?
We're fired up, bro. We're fired up to have you, man. Really excited. Big fan of your work. And I wanted to start right there. Shortly after the dismantling of the Razorbacks. Wasn't that sexy, bro?
Oh my goodness. That was so crazy.
It was nice. But shortly after, man, we Jamonte Waller, the 4-star edge. I know, is he listed as a 5-star anywhere? I know he's right there on the edge.
Yeah, he's right there. I think he ends up a 5-star by the time it's all said and done. But he's been a 5-star. He's teetered between the two, but for all intents and purposes, in my opinion, he's a 5-star.
But yeah, man. So big time get out of Mississippi. Depending on where you look, either the 1 or 2 player in the state of Mississippi. Obviously, the state that Hugh Freeze has some ties to. Pairing him up with a guy that we flipped from Georgia a while back, or maybe wasn't a flip. I know we beat out. Yeah, he was committed, right? Joe Phillips. So either he was committed or he was about to commit there. We beat Georgia in the recruitment either way. So pairing Jamonte Waller down there with a guy like Joe Phillips, man, just talk about that and what the future of this Auburn D line with those 2 studs.
Yeah, I think Joseph Phillips is a guy who has such positional versatility based on his athleticism, where he can stand up. There was a time and that Auburn can do different things when you have guys that can stand up and can put their hand in the dirt and rush the passer. That's going to, if Auburn doesn't get Jamonte Waller, then Joseph Phillips has no shot at even being that type of positionless type player along the line. When you have a guy who you know can pin his ears back and be the offensive tackle and go get the quarterback, you're able to do more things along the offensive line. Jamonte Waller is such a big piece of this class. I mean, this is a huge win. You do have to make it a signing day, but as of right now, to have a guy like this committed, he's someone at 6'2". He's going to play probably at about the 240 to 250 range by the time he gets into school and gets a whole year on campus. He's going to be able to set the edge. He is insanely strong. He has a great base. Great punching ability as far as striking, plays with a great center of gravity. He kind of reminds me of a Robert Mathis type, if you guys go back to the great defensive end for the Indianapolis Colts. Someone who may not have the length that, a lot of people say, well, you want to rush the passer, you got to be long so you can do long arm and all that type stuff. Bro, no. Man, listen. I don't care. Long arm, short arm, mid arm, by arm, no arm. Jamonte Waller is a baller. Man, are those bars? Jamonte Waller is a baller. No, for sure. He's definitely a guy that I'm excited about for Auburn. And Auburn fans should really, really be excited about him being in the class, and especially with Hugh Freeze, as you alluded to earlier, dipping back into Mississippi and getting he was in on the top two guys like Kamarion Frank and Jamonte Waller. Says a lot about the tag team of Jeremy Garrett, defensive line coach, with it having his first go around in these type of high leverage recruiting battles. He's accounted for himself very well, and I think Hugh Freeze, he's an old pro, and I think that this isn't the last 4 or 5 star you'll see in this class.
So that's a good, you say that. So I watched your latest episode last night with the guys over at 247, and you seem to have a little optimism around a LJ McCrae. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think McCrae is just a guy who was really considering Auburn a lot more than a lot of people thought that he was. From the intel that I have, him committing to Florida was more of a win than him committing to Georgia if Auburn was going to try to flip him. Georgia's as far as the way they had that thing rolling, they kind of move on to guys. And that's somewhere where Auburn is like, you're a have to have. He was a have to have then, he's a have to have now. And Auburn never stopped recruiting him in that same manner. It's not like we're Georgia, we'll keep going. And I can't say exactly what Georgia has done, but from what I know, Auburn just has I don't want to call it desperation, but there's like a sense of urgency when it comes to recruiting these type of guys. So where you'll go to Georgia and you'll be amongst 6 or 7 of that type of guy, you go to Auburn and you become part of the first 6 or 7 of that type of guy, the guy who sets the standard. And those are the type of guys who become legendary. You talk about the Julio Jones and the Mark Ingram. When they go back to Alabama, it's a lot different than a lot of these guys who they paved the way for, because there are those foundational pieces. I liken it to being a part of a startup. Like when you get into a startup business and you invest on the ground floor, it's a lot different, and the benefits and the perks are a lot different than a guy who sees something roll and they say, okay, I want to join in. So these guys who are choosing to pledge to Auburn, these 5-star, these high-level 4-stars, guys like LJ McCrae, there is sort of a pull where Auburn is saying, hey, come be a part of something special. You want, this is something that you will not be able to get anywhere else. And Hugh Freeze, I am so glad that my niece needs to buy a car, and I'm so glad that Hugh Freeze ain't selling it to her. I would probably be paying $30,000-$40,000 for a 1982 Honda Accord. That's how good of a salesman Hugh Freeze is, and I think that that's the type of job he's doing on these type of kids, and I think that LJ McCrae is somebody who you could absolutely see in the class.
I like to hear that. So also looking down at the defensive line, and I'll shoot over here to Blake because I know he's got some questions about some guys on the offensive side of the ball out of his area in Mobile there. Malik Blockton and TJ Lindsay down there. I know that Texas is making a big push for TJ, right? Kind of the way they did it on the offensive line there with DeAndre Carter. Do we feel good about us holding off there? And then just talk about Malik Blockton for a second and what he can bring to the table.
Yeah, I think TJ Lindsay is one of the more underrated guys in the class. If he and I hate to keep saying this because if was a fifth, we'd all be drunk. But just to be honest, if TJ Lindsay is 1.5 inches taller, I mean he's a borderline 5-star. Super strong. His base is what you really want in that 4-eye. He's the prototype 4-eye defensive lineman. I was talking to a guy on staff who was really close to his recruitment. That was just like, bro, I don't know what these rankings sites are seeing, but dog, TJ Lindsay is better than this guy, and some of those guys that he is ranked higher on Auburn's board. If people on the message boards and who follow recruiting saw where TJ Lindsay was on Auburn's board in front of other guys, then they would lose their mind. They would absolutely be like, oh, okay, yeah, we're super straight. If they subscribe to Auburn's board and not other boards, and not to say that anybody's right or wrong, but Auburn is going to get who they want. TJ Lindsay is a guy, came out of Arkansas. He ends up at IMG. Texas was really heavy on him. Arkansas basically was ready to back up a Brinks truck. And I think he's somebody in this class that you're going to have to hold Texas off. They're not going to give up because, and if you look at the level of recruiting that Texas is doing, there's an old saying in recruiting is it ain't who you get, it's who you beat.
Yeah.
So when you start to consistently see you're beating a Texas who's in the forefront of recruiting every year, you're beating Georgia, you're beating Alabama, you're going to start to see you beat Georgia on the field, you'll beat Alabama on the field, and this is where it starts. So I think that TJ Lindsay is definitely a big part of that class, and if they can hold on to him, I think it'll be a huge success for Hugh Freeze and company. There was a second question you asked too.
Just Malik blocking. It's what he's going to bring to the line.
Oh yeah, Block the same thing. I think he's more athletic than his older brother. Now when I say athletic, he has more physical traits. I think Marcus Harris is a work hard type guy, right? He built himself into what he is. Malik was just born with some of these gifts. A lot of people thought that Malik was kind of like, he's a 3-star. Nobody really wants him. Who did you beat? And if you were to ask Jeremy Garrett how happy he is to have Malik Blockton, and I know he can't speak on that publicly, but I'll guarantee you that everybody in Auburn is really happy to have him still committed. Alabama has been doing everything they can to get him in their class, whether it's been Jeremiah Beeman or whoever they've had committed to reach out to Malik. They actually, Beeman and Blockton kind of hung out together at the Alabama and Texas game. And I think that you'll see those two. I'm really starting to believe that one way or the other, you may see those two play together in college. They've grown pretty close. So I think Blockton is someone who Georgia got in late. Like a lot of he took notes of who was in on them late. And so I think that Auburn being able to identify his skill set early and seeing where it fit with in this scheme. Like I said, you're going to see you're going to see guys who may be traditionally undersized in Ron Roberts' scheme, and you'll balance that by having a lot of size at that 4-eye position on the other side or the strong side defensive end. He can play both. He gives you that, and what you want is that positional versatility that you're starting to see more teams kind of employ, where it is based on a hash. That's what position you play. If you're on the far hash on the boundary, then you may be a tackle, but now you're in. You could go from a 3-4 nose guard to a traditional 4-3 in based on a position on the field. And I think having guys who can move in and out, especially when you see teams going fastball, like the Ole Misses of the world and other teams that want to go fast, having that type of versatility that Malik Blockton has is going to be key for Auburn to continue to be successful.
That's good news. We see a guy like Kelter Falk kind of moving all around there. Blake, I know you got some questions about another potential package deal, right?
Yeah, I'll start at running back though, Dukes. I wanted to ask you this one. Auburn moved on from Fat Burnett, and I know that they're kind of looking at the kid from Clemson or the kid committed to Miami. Do you think they get one of those kids, or do you think this was more of a move of a loaded running back room and pushing all the chips in on Alvin Henderson?
A little bit of both. I think you could see them get. I had David. I call him David E because I don't want to butcher his name. Yeah. But the Clemson commit from the Metro Atlanta area, he's a really, really good player. I watched him last year and this year. He's a load to tackle. He run, and if you ever noticed, there's something that Cadillac looks for his running back specifically that he looks for first and foremost, and that's going to be pad level. He doesn't care if you're a 4.3 40 or you may not be as fast. He may not care if you're 6'2 or if you're 5'9. You got to be able to run behind your pass, and that's something that this guy does really, really well. Kevin Riley the same way, smaller guy than David E, but I will say that he still packs a wallop. And but when you look at the way Jarquez Hunter is coming on, it's starting to look like the Jarquez Hunter who, had some, some whispers of possibly being all the top back in the SEC, potentially one of the top backs in the nation. You're starting to see that as he continues to stack games headed up into the momentum that he's building going into the Iron Bowl. So getting him to stay, I know I talked to some NFL scouts and I talked to a couple of agents who also think that right now he has a ceiling around being a day 2 pick, which is about all you can ask for as a running back. But a lot of things have to go right and break in his favor for him to be a day 2 guy. That being said, Auburn's treated him well. I feel like it took him a while to get over the fiasco in the summer. I talked to him personally a few times, just checking where his head was and off the record type deal. And you could see as he began to kind of get back into the swing of things, a lot of people joke about it, but man, you know how crazy that has to be just to get on social media and like, is that me? What the like? Right, and the whole network, people saying, people who were behind you, dogging you. Yep. So kudos to that guy, Jarquez Hunter, for being able to overcome that and now showing who he is on the field once again. With that being said, he's not a lot to go into the NFL draft. If he comes back, you're able to go back and you can be really picky with what you want to do in the transfer portal or recruiting. So if you don't get one of your guys, you don't have to take a guy this year. You got a Damari Austin still. You still got Brian Batiste. You still got Jeremiah Cobb, who's come on really strong. Sean Jackson, who you haven't seen a lot of, but he just seems like one of those guys who loves Auburn because if you take him to a Jacksonville State, he just looks like a 1,300-yard back who just needs an opportunity. So having a backfield like that where you can also dip into the portal, there are going to be some guys in the portal. I know for a fact Auburn turned down 3 or 4 running backs in the portal this year who sent out feelers, like, hey, would there be any interest or, and Auburn's just like, nah. And I think that says a lot about Cadillac's room and also where Auburn stands. So if I had to just to answer that question, I would say it's a little bit of both. And I do think that right now, depending on how these next few games go, I think you'll see Jarquez Hunter back next year. And then it's probably going to be, if not the strongest, next year the running back room will probably be the strongest room on the roster.
Well, before I get to the 251 boys, Dukes, we all know Cam Coleman with the firing of Jimbo Fisher, man. The Auburn faithful is wanting him to come home. How do you feel about where Auburn stands right now with Cam Coleman?
I think they have as good a shot as anybody. I think he's been to Auburn a million times. I think the way Auburn finishes is going to have a lot to do with how that recruitment shakes out. You want to have some momentum. Florida has been kind of fizzling a little bit. So, why it looked like, hey, we're doing this, we're going to do this. They haven't really put it together on the field. Hugh Freeze is kind of showing you that trajectory early, and now they're getting hot at the right time. So you go back in. If you have a performance like, let's say you don't win the Iron Bowl, but you put up a fight like you did against Georgia, that's still in recruiting. That's a win. Because that's almost like, hey, look, we were 2 or 3 plays away. You think you got 2 or 3 plays in you? So those, if that's me, if I'm recruiting, that's the pitch that I'm going with. And I think that Cam Coleman is definitely a 2 to 3 play type guy who can be a game changing figure for Auburn. And how big of a star, let's say his career works out, being where he is, how big of a star would he be in this area coming out of Central Phoenix City?
Hometown kid, man.
Man, just think about how many times it didn't go your Auburn's way. You think about what's my guy Justin Ross. There was one before him. What was the kid's name? He's in the league now. Went to Clemson, had a great career too. Man, I can't think of his name, but Clemson has just been coming to take those guys away. And so I think now you got Cam Coleman, who's not considering Clemson, thankfully. So he's one that you want to keep home, and hopefully Auburn can do it. And I think that they are in a really good position too. And there's something about the way that Hugh Freeze closes. I don't know what it is, but he's not going down signing day without a fight. You saw it happen last year. I was one of the first to kind of got wind that Ken Lee was probably flipping. And, people was like, after the Bo Hughley stuff, they were like, Dukes is probably just, probably getting high, huffing glue, imagining stuff, But no, Hugh Freeze, like anybody that's in the know, you talk about Hugh Freeze closing ability. I think Cam Coleman is a guy that if I had to pick somebody to be in the class, I mean, I would go with either of those two, like LJ McCrae or Cam Coleman, if I had to pick. And I'm not making a prediction by any means, but I just think those are guys that Auburn is heavily invested in. And I think that, especially in the case of Cam Coleman, who really understands what it means to be an Auburn man, I think that he's one that you could actually see in the class.
Well, Dukes, 251 boys, man, and there's a lot of good ones down here, man. Perry Thompson and Bryce Gain already committed to play for the Tigers, but we got Ryan Williams down here, and I know there's been a lot of smoke. His dad played at Auburn. He visits Auburn pretty often, and his quarterback in high school, Mr. KJ Lacy, he is a Texas commit right now, and I know KJ, he visits also, and him and Ryan are really close and everything. What is the actual smoke around Ryan possibly reclassifying, and could he potentially pick the Tigers? And is there any smoke there with KJ Lacy?
Yeah, I think I'm starting to feel like Ryan is going to classify. From guys that I talked to behind the scenes, that there's probably it's more like 65-35, 70-30 that he does reclass. And looking at where he would be in this class, I mean, Georgia's recruiting him like he's a 24. I was at the game when he was at Georgia, and he was having the ball, but he's gonna have fun anywhere he goes. Now, one thing I did see was when Auburn did play Georgia, he was having a conversation. It was him, KJ Bolden, and Jalen Crawford having a conversation. They were saying, "Man, you know what? I hope Auburn wins." Like, there's like some really, and I'm sitting right there. I'm like, dang, like, okay. And they're like, yeah, we want to see him rest the field, but just even that coming out of their mouth, like, hey, we hope Auburn wins. Like, and he was right there, Ryan. So there's a mystique about Auburn, and the recruits know it. I think that Alabama does have a pretty strong hold on him, but I think I never count Hugh Freeze out. And depending on how that Iron Bowl goes, and you got Dad there. I'm not sure how he's really good with really good friends with the kid the basketball kid who was committed to Auburn, who's at Kansas, I think.
LeBaron?
Yep. They're really good friends. Their fathers are super tight. So LeBaron was one time committed to Auburn. So Auburn does have. I mean, if he flips anywhere, I think it would be Auburn. I know Georgia wants him like nobody's business with what they'll need at receiver next year. But I think he's a right now, if I had to say, I'd probably say he's probably like a 70-25-5 Alabama, Auburn. Yeah, Georgia. I think it's gonna be hard to flip him, but you never know. And with KJ Lacy, he's a guy that, as you see, they committed to different schools already. So he's a guy who's good enough to stand on his own. I don't think Texas is taking anybody just for the heck of taking him, especially early. Like, that's a guy that if Texas didn't want him, they would have just told him to chill. If you look at some of that film, KJ Lacy is a player in his own right. And a lot of the times, if you look at how Ryan is able to run under the ball, it's because KJ is out there dropping dimes. I mean, sometimes it's almost like unfair when you get a chance to watch those two together. Like, growing up, I was a Florida State fan before I became an Auburn fan. I was a Georgia fan too, but Florida State. And I liken Ryan to more like Ryan's game reminds me of like Peter Ward and Lavernius Coles like mixed together. Like, Coles' speed with the moves to Pete up, and just to go out there and chuck it to him. I don't know if you guys remember, but Charlie Ward used to just chuck it, like, and guys would run up under it. And that's kind of how KJ Lacy reminds me of how he plays the game. He really does have a good control of the huddle. You can see those guys respond to him. But as far as Auburn goes, I think that when Auburn really breaks down what they want to do in the 25 class and whose offense is going to be, I think you'll see more movement along those lines as far as going to look for the next field general. I think that it could be Ryan Montgomery, somebody who's really high on the list. I don't expect for them to take 2 quarterbacks, so it maybe come down to a thing to see who's first in the boat. Antoine Hill Jr. From Houston County in Georgia, who's committed to Colorado currently. We'll see how that shakes out. Somebody that Auburn loves a ton, big physical kid who can run, but it has a cannon for an arm. But to get back to the KJ part of it, I think it's somebody that Auburn has real interest in, and their interest in KJ isn't predicated upon them getting Ryan. He's a great standalone prospect.
How big is Perry Thompson at that get, Dukes?
Yeah, he's Julio Jones to me. Like, he's Julio. When I watch him, like, guys say other guys, he's Julio to me. When the best picture is when they're at the pool party at Big Cat, and you got DeMarcus Riddick and Perry Thompson next to each other, and you don't know who's the linebacker. And I think that just says a lot as far as what Perry Thompson can bring to the table. That big physical presence, where you don't have to have just the most accurate guy in the world. You can get a dual threat guy with a cannon, get it in the area, and he's a guy that's going to make a play. And then when you think about the perimeter runs that Auburn does like to run, when you can get somebody who can seal the edge, imagine having Perry Thompson. Think about that picture, and Perry Thompson going up against a 6 foot, 180-pound corner, and the sweeps coming his way. Who you think is going to win? So I think Perry Thompson is huge, a huge get. His highlights are freakish too. It's almost like I wouldn't even not give who else is on that team? Like, who cares? Like, no disrespect to anybody at Foley, but yes, disrespect to everybody at Foley if you're not throwing the ball to Perry Thompson almost every play. Man, he's a really, really freakish athlete. And I think you can't understate how big it was for him to jump in, just to kind of show that, to get that momentum going, to be like where you saw that DeMarcus Riddick wasn't a fluke and that Auburn had something real that they were putting together. So I think he's a huge get, and I think he's a great player. And if you can't do nothing else, you go back to the glory days of Auburn. Auburn was recruiting Atlanta, Mobile, and South Florida like nobody's business. And I think that that's going to be the same recipe that it'll take for Auburn to get back to where they want to go.
Damn. Dustin?
Yeah, I got a couple more for you, Dukes. And I don't know what happened, guys. I went to plug my laptop up, and all of a sudden I'm pink. So I got no idea what's going on with that. Hey. I don't know. But KJ Bolton, Dukes. So out of his mouth, the words out of his mouth, I think it was the Georgia game, but one of his visits where he had said that he was really close to committing in Hugh Freeze's office. So we know that we've been right there on this one. And his last visit is going to be the Iron Bowl. I mean, I know that he says he's pretty firm in his commitment, right? But you said never count out Hugh Freeze, and we've already had him pretty close one time. If that Iron Bowl goes, like you just said, playing him close, and then all of a sudden you got to be able to sell, hey man, 7-5, played Georgia close, played Bama close. You saw them both in person. Are we still in this one?
Yeah, absolutely. And what a lot of people don't know is there's KJ's dad don't want him there. KJ's dad wants him at Florida State, but man, KJ's dad wanted him at Georgia, to be honest. If Kai Bolden wanted KJ anywhere, it would have been Georgia. And KJ's mom wanted Auburn. If it was up to Keisha, then KJ would have been at Auburn. They left this decision up to KJ, which I think is the best place for it to be, especially for a guy like Hugh Freeze. So if KJ gets to Auburn, he feels the love. I mean, could you imagine Auburn storming the field, beating Alabama? How hard that would be. I mean, 2 weeks before signing day.
Yeah.
Like, come on, bro. Like, that's. I mean, it's going to be hard to top that. So I think Auburn is definitely in it. And I really think they're gonna get 2 more 5-stars. Like, I do, and I think it may be a guy that may come left field. I don't think people are really counting KJ Bolden in right now, and I wouldn't either. Like, at this point, But as far as being in it, absolutely. I mean, who saw what Hugh Freeze was doing to get Jamonte Waller? Like, nobody was expecting. It was like, and that's why I really wasn't kind of too concerned about not missing out on Cam Franklin. And they knew what was going on. It's not like they didn't, but they never stopped. It's not like, oh, we're going to get Cam Franklin, so we're going to start recruiting Jamonte Waller.
Yeah.
And also understand, it's not we got Jamonte Waller, so we don't need Cam Franklin. Hey, just remember I said that, so not saying anything, but they are definitely still recruiting Cam Franklin. And there are other guys too that Auburn is recruiting at a high clip right now. I don't even know how Hugh Freeze does it. Like, it's unreal how hard he works. And just for me being on my side of it, especially with the kids in Atlanta, the higher rated kid who he's in on, he's like, man, I talked to Coach Freeze today. Oh, I talked to Coach Freeze. Like, bro, he's supposed to be coaching. Like, what is he doing? Like, I haven't seen this level of efficiency. Well, I'm like, bro, he must get 27 hours in a day because I don't see how he do it, bro. Like, for real. But as far as back to KJ, man, I think Auburn's really in it. And I think, like you said, kick six, the prayer of Jordan Hare, there stranger things have happened, especially inside that stadium. Yeah. And I think with the excitement that you saw at Big Cat, imagine what it would be with that type of finale in Jordan Hare for the season.
For sure. I got two more for you. One from our member, but I had a question. My final question for you, Dukes, is when I hear all these recruits talk, right? When I hear they give their interviews, they all, and you just follow them on social media, they all seem like legit bought in, right? And I know that it's part of recruiting nowadays for a class for you to commit to a school and to start recruiting for that class. But like these guys, man, the Walker Whites, the Perrys, you see when Jamonte, he flips and now he's immediately out there being vocal about it. These guys really seem bought into Hugh Freeze's vision, and they really seem to believe in what he's trying to do at Auburn. How important is that going to be 2 years from now, man, when these guys are sophomores and they're in the program and it's time for them to contribute?
It's huge because in the NIL era, is what have you done for me lately, right? It's, am I being used right today? And am I happy today? It's like constantly, it's like being in a relationship that you got to win the girl over every day. It gets, when you would much rather be with somebody that you know that even on an off day, they still love you and they're, you don't have to look your best and be in the best shape every day. And I think that's what Auburn is doing. They're getting guys who want to get to Auburn, who believe in Auburn and believe in what Hugh Freeze is building. You got guys, these are a different type of guys. These are guys who could go to any school and go be a number everywhere else. 5-star number 27, 5-star number 28. Eventually, Auburn's going to get to that point. I mean, Hugh Freeze recruits at that type of clip to where he's going to start to fill those spots up with more higher level talent, with the blue chip talent that Georgia's been winning. Georgia's won back-to-back national championships with that, and they are looking for their third. So having guys that are bought in outside of their ranking, outside of the NIL deals, just being bought into what it means to be an Auburn man, I think it's huge. And I think these guys, I hate to say sipping the Kool-Aid, but man, bro, is it orange? Is it blueberry? Like these guys, whatever it is, bro, like they're I mean, it seems like they're gone off of it right now. And I mean, could you blame them? I mean, like, man, the first time I met Hugh Freeze, bro, you would have thought I was Barack Obama, dog. Man, he walks up, he's like, hey, man, love what you do, man. Hey, man. I'm like, man, all right, coach. Like, it's my first time seeing him. Like, this first time meeting him, he's cool, super cool. The second time I ran into him was at SEC Media Days. I threw him a softball question, and he hit it out the park. He's like, oh, man, thank you. Hey, man, I appreciate it. Great question. Like, he just makes you feel good. Like, if you're around him, cool guy. And I can see how, I mean, just look at like the polar opposite from last year to this year. Right. Imagine having to go clean up some of that with this type of personality, with the Southern Baptist preacher type vibe, it's like, hey man, we're going to do it. We're going to pray. We're going to go to Waffle House, all of that stuff, right? Coming from that to, from like the other. I mean, come on, dog. So yeah, man.
It's just about getting it, Dukes. And Ryan Williams is the perfect example. I'm sure you've told the story before of
Right.
Ryan Williams standing there. What do you say? He stood there for 10, 15 minutes right beside Harsin, and Harsin didn't speak to him. And then you talk about how Hugh makes everybody feel like they're the most important person in the world when they're right in front of him. So he just gets it, man. He gets people. He understands how it works down here. It's a different beast down here, and Hugh gets it. The final one before we let you get out of here, man. And we really appreciate your time tonight. Our guy Thomas, he wanted to ask just what on the NIL front, is Auburn ready to compete with these big schools like Texas A&M, like Georgia, Alabama? Are we in the ballpark with these guys, or where are we at in the NIL stage?
Hey man, look at me. Look, Auburn is here. Believe it. Like, this is what I do know from guys that on the inside of the NIL collective. They do a really, really good job of trying to assess the best way to allocate the funds based on team needs.
Yeah.
I can say that as plainly as NCAA regulatory regulation leads as I can say, right?
Wide receivers getting bags this class. That's what I hear, dude. Cam Coleman might get a bag is what I just heard.
You feel me? Like, nah, man, like Auburn ain't playing. Like, you don't get I mean, come on, dog. In this era, they're definitely up to par. In some ways they may, they're one of the leading teams when it comes to having their NIL together. And it's big kudos to Auburn. This is the second iteration of the NIL collective. If you remember, they had the first one, and then you come back and you got on the victory. OTV came out guns a-blazing. They wanted to make sure that it was about not just the football team, but as a whole. They wanted to get Auburn. They wanted to make Auburn competitive. They've come with really creative packages for the average guy like myself to be able to get involved. If I wasn't in the media, I definitely would be, doing my part. And my family is like, oh man, that's really cool. So Auburn definitely competes. You'll continue to see Auburn compete at that level. And you'll be surprised at what you're able to do with their NIL funds once you've built a winner.
Yeah.
Yep. So a lot of people think that Georgia, he's just gonna go to Georgia for a bag. Like, nah, Kirby is selling that culture. Come over here and win a national championship. You're not gonna lose anything to come here. But we're not gonna overpay or and I don't think Kirby is saying that himself. I think that's Georgia. Let me make sure I'm not saying anything to get nobody in trouble. But no, I think Georgia's NIL collective is saying, hey, come be a part of a winner and we'll make sure you don't lose. And I think Auburn's is saying, come be an Auburn Tiger.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Right. Hell yeah, we appreciate you, man. Dukes, before you get out of here, brother, just let everybody look at him. Hey, he said, Thomas, to answer your question, we got the cash, brother. We got the cash.
Yeah.
And Jalua Solomon, you hear us? Come on back, baby.
For sure.
Yeah.
Come on home, bub. And we like Duke said, man, Hugh Freeze isn't gonna give up. Dukes, where can the people find you, man?
Man, find me on Twitter and Instagram at Dukes the Scoop. Yeah, man, and on 24/7 for sure, man. Auburn Undercover. And yeah, if you see me out, make sure you come speak and say you saw me on the Up Tempo pod, and I'd be like, yeah, bro, like make sure you support my cousins for sure.
Hey, and Dukes, I need your Falcons to keep losing, buddy.
Hey man, me too, man. Because hopefully we can go get a quarterback next year, man. Good gracious, bro. Sure, man.
I hear you, man. My Bucks, we're out here struggling. NFC South is something else right now.
Yeah. It's tough, man. Like the Bucks, like Auburn South, right? It's kind of got the most Auburn guys on the team, right? So yeah, I get it. At least you got that. At least you got like that to root for. You got Carlson Davis, Jamel Dean, KJ Britt.
Okay, we got KJ. Yeah, we got a couple guys, man.
Yeah, there's a few more down there. Yeah, man. I'll root for them a little bit.
I hear you. All right, man. Well, y'all like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm sure we'll have Dukes on again soon. December 2nd, man. Signing day right around the corner. I really enjoyed this, Dukes. We appreciate your time, man. War Damn Eagle. We'll see you guys with our preview show Friday, 10 a.m. We're out.
War Damn, baby.
For sure.